Who do we put our drink order in with? Do we?
Anyone?
Can we? White Russians.
White Russians.
Three Caucasians up here.
Yeah.
Anyone? We could get a little help with that. We'd appreciate
Ellie?
it.
Are you in an aisle seat?
Oh, that sucks. don't call somebody out to bring the. All right.
This isn't water, is it?
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
For what?
For coming out. Showing the movie.
Thank you, Adam, for
we'll
agreeing
see.
to sit here and talk with us in front of people.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm sorry is a better term to use.
We'll see about that too. Before we talk about what's in the movie, I'm interested to hear what your personal relationships are to it. When was the first time you saw it? Is it a movie that you watch again and again? Did you see it in the theater? What was your first contact with the movie?
I'll start off with it and say my first contact with The Big Lebowski. I have a couple of distinct memories. When it came out, I was in college, and I remember seeing it on a newfangled technology called a DVD player at the time, which was very exciting.
Not familiar.
It's got a play button. It's a big deal.
It's like a tape. Like a cassette.
Ish. Yeah. It's like a really.
It's a flat tape.
It's like a high-end record, really. But I remember watching it. I remember studying screenwriting at the time and watching it and having the sense of kind of like, I think this is important. Like about a few minutes into it, having the sense of like, I think this is going to be a thing. This is something real. And it was something that was sort of delightful. But my main memory of it, the first time I saw it, was that I thought I think this is going to be a thing, and it's pretty good. But not like tear my head open, amazing, the thing that I love the most. And then I saw it again, and it grew on me. Wes Anderson movies tend to do this also, where it's something that repeated viewings actually sort of deepen the well and makes it into something that's far more than it was on that first viewing for me.
So is it a movie that when it comes on, if you're flicking through channels, we still flick the channels that way? If you're flicking through channels and it's on, you're like, oh, I'm sticking to that. Like now this is what I'm doing this afternoon.
Absolutely. I mean, at that point, it's a weird, like I'd say, it's found art's kind of the wrong term to use for it, but it's sort of like it's a little gift. It's that song that comes on the radio that you have on your iPod that you could listen to anytime you want, but now that it's on and it's happening, I need to experience this.
Pass.
So Dave,
Yeah.
I'll let you pass if you want to pass.
You never studied.
I never studied. No, I think because of the fact that I've seen The Big Lebowski so many times, they all blur into one big amalgamated viewing. And I think that I had the same experience as Dave the first time I saw it. I was like, it's fun, it's interesting, but on repeated viewings, it showed itself to be the ogre that it is. Very layered.
I am going to...
Time?
Give us a
Thank
second.
you, Jordan. You're the greatest.
Thank you. Then.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. To all of you guys.
Cheers to all of you, please.
I have a rule that when I'm presenting or speaking from an audience, I never drink alcohol first.
That's a dumb rule.
Yeah.
No, it's out the window. Yeah, no, it's gone now. Every time I talk to you guys, like, well, all right.
We call it the Dean Martin rule.
His was iced tea most of the time or something, wasn't it? He was smarter than me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
It's a Long Island iced tea that's radically different.
Well, I'm going to sing now, so that's... I can't remember the first time that I saw it. I feel like I've just always been watching it. I feel like there's never not a time.
That's an interesting idea.
It's the beauty of The Big Lebowski. It's been a part of our lives forever. Yeah.
Part of what we are talking about here is the creativity behind the movie, and I know that you both make some links between the way the Coens think about or seem to think about making art and what you both do with alcohol. So what linkages do you see between how they make a film and how you make alcohol?
Ooh, I know this one.
Yeah,
I passed on the other one so I could handle that one. So glad you asked, Adam.
Yeah.
So what's really, really cool about not just this film, but everything that the Coen Brothers do. I'm looking at you. I want to look at you guys, but the lights are so bright I can't see you, and it's so dark out there.
I'll go.
Yeah, perfect. Just behind the curtain.
This is like a voiceover, actually.
They define categorizing. They step into multiple different genres to make movies, and when they do, they completely reinvent whatever genre they step into. The Big Lebowski, as we talked about before, is based on The Big Sleep, loosely. And the one place that I think they stay true to Chandler, Raymond Chandler, in case you guys don't know, the Big Sleep author, is... he
was a member.
What's that?
He was a member of the...
Yeah, so perfect. He felt that the scene and painting the scene was more important than plot elements. I think it's something that Rachel was talking about when she was talking about the film initially. And they would get in and paint these scenes, and they were very painterly about everything that they did. But what was most important was that they would get into a genre and they would reinvent it. You look at this movie, and if you don't have any deep understanding of the original movie, The Big Sleep, or the book, you don't really see the Big Sleep there. But if you do know it, you can recognize it. But what's beautiful about that is that they step in and they made something that stands on its own, as weird and wonderful as it is, but it's totally different. And I think that's from our point of view at St. George Spirits, and anytime you want to just correct me, you're wrong, we try and reinvent a category. We don't feel that there's any point in creating a product in a category unless we've got something completely new to say. We want you to recognize that it's in that category, but only marginally. You know, we want to reinvent categories instead of stepping in line with them.
But how do you reconcile that with engaging with an audience? And I'd like to think
I think to that same idea, what Lance is describing is actually the process of as you sort of enter into that category, and there's that familiarity in that category, that genre, if you will. And it's something that The Big Lebowski is a great example of a film, of a creative work that operates on multiple levels. It's sort of, you can have sort of the surface level of, if you don't know the Big Sleep, if you don't know Raymond Chandler, like if you don't know these things, you can dig into it and just enjoy it for what it is. But there's also these other levels to it as you kind of learn about that subcontext and almost those inside jokes that have been weaved into it, this idea that's underneath it all. It actually has more structure than just, it's sort of the old iceberg analogy of like, the top of it, something is what it is, but it's got all of this underneath it. And it's kind of amazing that people can interact with just that surface layer on top, and it works in a lot of ways. It's successful. Or you can dig down into it and interact with it in these other levels where it's got this history and context, and it's something that is more powerful for that if you can appreciate those elements to it. And if you can't, it's just a fun, ridiculous kind of amazing ride of a movie.
But there has to be some moment, doesn't there? And maybe it's more true even with a craft spirit than a movie, where you have to find a place where you are being more approachable or increasing an audience?
Absolutely not. A lot of people tend to think that way, and it's totally understandable. You think about the fact that you've invested your life, your money, your time into a business, and you need to be able to find an audience. But it's like with all the best indie films, it doesn't come from trying to please Hollywood or the traditional audience. The best movies come from somebody totally reinventing something. And for us, a Spirit does the same thing. And what we do is we try and please ourselves with a Spirit. And if we've done that, then we go out and try to find the audience that it hits with. We're the worst possible business people in the world. Is there milk in this? So I'm lactose intolerant. This is going to be a bad scene up here. Can you dim the lights? That's fantastic. And if you have a rim shot button up there, we'll need that at some point. But yeah, we've never, ever looked for something that hey, there's an audience for a strawberry kiwi flavored vodka. That's what we're gonna go for.
You guys finally making a strawberry kiwi vodka? I've been bugging you about that for years.
Yeah. We can't even say the phrase focus group. That's not true. I just said it. Yeah, I know. But no, it's not about that. It's about us finding. Spirits making, by and large, across the world is an industrial endeavor. There are some really large producers that make stunningly beautiful products. There are producers at every scale that make beautiful products. But it's really about focusing on the artistry for us, and for us, making a spirit is a form of self-expression, much like making a movie. And what you're trying to do there is get an idea across to someone. I mean, one of the key points is one that we're drinking right now, the Nola. I'll let you take this, but it's Dave's creation, and there was a really solid reason, a solid impetus for making this Nola liqueur.
Well, I think it's something that kind of what you're saying, and I think this the Nola is a really great example of this, but it's also something that is indicative of everything that we've ever put out into the world. And I'd argue the same thing for something like what the Coen Brothers tend to do. No one has an argument that there was a focus group, that there was a demographic sort of slice that someone was chasing down. They're like, the Big Lebowski is how we're going to go after that demographic group. Sure. It doesn't work.
The key demo of
did you know, most people don't realize, but the entire movie was funded by Kahlua.
It's a good sell, actually.
Yeah.
I think any genuine artwork has to be made for a single audience member, and sometimes that's the artist themselves. Sometimes it's a spouse, a significant other.
It's an homage.
But it's something. It's not a demographic. It's not. You don't design something for a group of people. You design something for one person that you know. And for me, the coffee liqueur process really stemmed and was influenced by loving chicory coffee when I was in New Orleans. I was in New Orleans meeting my wife Julia, who's not here right now. She's at home with our 3-month-old. So,
Mazel tov.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Very exciting time. I'm going to show everyone pictures later.
You got to come out tonight.
We'll put them on the big board.
We got a big board. But I was in New Orleans. She was working on her MFA in New Orleans. I went out there. I flew out there to visit one of my oldest friends in the world. Spent very little time with him that weekend and started hanging out with this girl that was a buddy of his, and eventually talked her into coming back out here and becoming my wife.
Yeah, you sort of brushed over the invitation that she made. She asked you over to see if you wanted to see Hot Fuzz.
It turns out
you thought she was talking about a movie.
Yeah, that was that. I'm not sure how PG this is, but that
was her first disappointment with you.
That was one of many. It was, that was definitely what we would term a non-successful night.
Yeah.
You guys are going to be shocked when it turns out Big Lebowski is actually a euphemism.
I was out there though, and sitting at Café Du Monde in New Orleans and having chicory coffee and meeting this woman and falling in love and had these wonderful memories of that time and space and what that was. And then I came back out here and I found chicory coffee, and I even found Café Du Monde chicory coffee, and got some, brewed it up, and was kind of like, this is garbage. This is terrible, and started to learn more about chicory.
Poor craftsman blends his tools.
With that said, it was something where it was what I wanted to do was create something of that time and place. And so the first step in that, and something for us, it goes back to sort of our heritage as eau de vie distillers, as unaged fruit brandy distillers. You have to work with raw materials that are really genuine and of quality, because all we really do at our best work is act as a caretaker for raw materials and then translate them through these other mediums and sort of try to capture and sort of blend that and put that into something that's hopefully greater than the sum of its parts, and that works in whether we're blending whiskey or if we're doing something like a coffee liqueur. So in the Nola coffee liqueur, part of the inspiration point was a French roasted chicory root that was beautiful. Usually chicory root is something that's used to stretch out a coffee supply. I think it stems back to even the Napoleonic Wars. This was beautiful, plummy, black pepper, this rich chicory root. It was gorgeous. And I remember coming to you with it, and you were saying chicory is kind of worthless in coffee. Why are we bothering with this?
My understanding of chicory was it's one of these things that was a wartime necessity. You don't have enough coffee, you're going to stretch it. You add chicory.
And I remember saying but what about this chicory? And you had this. Oh yeah, that's worthwhile. That's valuable. That's intriguing. And that was sort of a jumping off point to then be able to work with an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe coffee bean, to work with local roasters over in Oakland called Jewel Box, really talented, wonderful folks, and to use that as all those pieces and just sort of create something. And so by the time we made the first batch of Nola, I remember that I was a newlywed. I was just married in August. It was February, and it worked out that it was like a Friday night. It was February 14th. It was Valentine's Day. It's my first Valentine's Day as a married man with this woman who arguably is sort of like the centerpiece to this coffee liqueur, and I need to work. I need to roast coffee
So
tonight.
naturally, you're in the distillery.
And it was kind of like,
coffee,
I'm gonna be that guy who's got to work on our first like Valentine's Day together as a married couple. And to Julia's credit, I remember calling her on Friday saying, hey, I gotta roast coffee tonight, and she said, cool, I'm in. Let's go do this. And so we spent that night roasting coffee with Brad and Kate over at Jewel Box. You and Ellie came over, savored a bottle of champagne. Like it was a really special, like important, valuable time and experience. Yeah. And I think all of that translates and shows through into what we finally put into a bottle with that.
I think that one of the things that St. George does is capture specific moments or experiences in an aroma or a taste. That's something we've talked about before. Is that with all the gins capturing different parts of the Bay Area in the nose on the gins. But I'm interested in this in the context of the movie in terms of working within a genre to try to stretch what that genre means. Big Lebowski comes from The Big Sleep. It comes from kind of a noir mystery background. This is a genre that is typically categorized along with mystery, science fiction, romance. These are things that are not in the literary section of the library. So what does it mean to work within a genre as something that's recognizable and maybe not even considered high art, and try to expand that definition?
Adam, I can call you Adam, right?
We'll see.
It's Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
It's a
really.
It's a.
I would say beneath you, but
you know better. No, it's a great question that deserves a much better introduction to the answer than that. But the funny thing is, thinking about something like the terroir gin you're alluding to, it didn't actually start as a gin. At our best, we're frustrated perfume makers. That wasn't funny. That was serious. You're gonna hurt my feeling. The roots of distillation start with perfume makers. We can talk about Maria later on, but long story. But it's really about capturing these aromatics, and initially that was really more medicinal, and then later on it became evocative and emotionally driving. And for us, with the terroir, it was inspiration from a place, and it wasn't until well into the process that we realized that it would fit into a gin category. It was essentially, at the beginning, a distillate of Mount Tam. Huh. And you try and figure out what category something fits into later, not because we really need personally a category, but because once you put it out into the market, it's sort of important to be able to have a category so people know where to fit it on the bar, know where to use it. But when you think about something that's got that much in the way of mountainous, piney, alpine aromatics, you want to make it. Gin is a logical place for that to go, and juniper actually helped to bring up more of those aromatics.
And I think at the time, arguably, gin as a category was a challenge to what that sort of distillate Mount Tam was. Gin as a category wasn't something that was sort of like, oh, that's a huge thing you got to jump into. That was actually that's the negative part of it at the time, and it turns out it was something that was, to your point, I think has helped to carry the category forward and to broaden it to create something that's far more progressive than it was even 5-7 years ago.
Yeah, and I know a lot of you right now are thinking, aren't we supposed to be talking about a movie?
I was going to get there.
But
I'm watching the clock. I know we're going to do movie stuff.
Nice, good. You should be paying attention
is there a movie
to your
here?
guests. To that point, we're one of the biggest criticisms that people have when they say that they don't like gin. Anybody? What is gin to for most people who don't like gin? Bitter. Okay. Who said piney? Yes, you back there holding your hand up. I can see that. Too piney. Most people say too piney. I don't like gin. It's so piney. Well, our response to that is
There's a lot of pine. Is what your response to that was?
Yeah, we're actually going to put some real pine in there. So.
But it's thoughtful. It's intentional. It's not
an accident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well.
Yes. Okay.
Oh, really? You want to do that? You want to do that now, or you want to wait for questions? It's up to you. Your call. Yeah.
We'll have questions later on.
Okay. I mean, we can stop if you want. We're not doing anything up here. We're fine.
Just hanging out.
I'm actually kidding. We'll do questions later. Yeah. Give me like 15. If I'm starting questions in 15, stand up again. No, I'm serious. In 15, stand up again if I haven't started. But I promise
I've got to watch. I'll be watching it.
All right. Because I want to talk about White Russians.
Let's do that.
It's not actually much of a drinking movie.
Except for all the White Russians.
Well, it's a lot of White Russians.
Okay. But truth be told, it's sort of a white trash cocktail.
Well, so
wait, what are you
really?
What are you trying to say about Russians right now?
I question the premise. I'm sorry. I know where I'm sitting. Really?
Is my family here?
So what?
It's in the spirits world, in the cocktail world, it's sort of the stepchild.
Well, but so explain. I mean, we have a variant. What's in ours and what's in the White Russian that makes it an interesting?
Well,
drink?
this one's not really a variant. This one is it's Nola, and is this one the regular straight up yeah California citrus?
No California citrus.
Yeah, so vodka and Nola and
half and half.
Yeah.
Is that a good drink?
It's I don't know. You tell me
ours,
you're drinking it.
Ours
you're,
like as
you're,
a
you're drinking it. You
cocktail.
wrote proof. Yeah, it's a thoroughly enjoyable drink, and actually it's funny because I think that it was so. To talk about the evolution of the White Russian, you have to go back to the Black Russian, which was invented in 1937 at the Hotel Metropole in Brussels. I was going to see if anybody had been there. They were going to stop me there. By a bartender named Gustav Tops. And he made it for the American ambassador to Luxembourg. And as you can probably imagine, being the ambassador to Luxembourg, you probably don't have a lot to do. It's all of like 4 acres, so there's not a lot going on. And so she spent a lot of time at the bar in Brussels. And Gus, we'll call him Gus for now, made this cocktail for her, the Black Russian, and it was just coffee liqueur and vodka. Super simple. That's 1947. We don't actually see anything in the historic record for the White Russian until 1965. And does anybody know where the White Russian first shows up in print in 1965? Japan. That's super close. Oakland. November 11th, 1965, it shows up in an insert in the Oakland Tribune from, what's that?
21st?
Yeah, that's right. It was, the 21st. Thank you. See?
Never studied.
So I keep it, never studied. November 21st, 1965, and it was an ad from the Southern Comfort Company that was making...
I don't like where this is headed already.
They were making a liqueur called Coffee Comfort, and it was...
Oh, that can't be good.
I have a feeling it was their way to be able to sell it to a broader audience, and this is one of the problems...
Southern Coffee.
Southern Coffee, thank you. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Thanks. Good night. I brought the rug so I can just curl up in the center for a little while.
We'll wrap you up in it.
Yeah,
we'll take you
out. So many jokes. Anyway, it was. I really think that it was just a way to be able to make a cocktail that was very spirit forward, more palatable, much like a party at Wired magazine. Mm-hmm. Not that you need to make the party at Wired magazine more palatable, but you want to get more cocktails into people at those parties.
No, by party at Wired magazine, you mean Friday. I think.
Right,
Probably.
exactly. Yeah,
that's
sorry.
right.
Yeah,
That's how we like to think about it. That's how we envision it.
We have a bar cart.
But yeah, so that's essentially where it came from. And the Black Russian's a great cocktail. This is just sort of a watered down version, watered down with milk. Although fat's always so satisfying, so a little half and half in there is delightful.
I've got a soft spot for the White Russian.
Yeah.
I love the White Russian.
You have a lot of soft spots.
I do. They're actually like White Russians, right? Gathered around here. I'm starting a collection.
It functions as a punchline in the movie to some extent. Why does it work as a punchline? I mean, are we supposed to think like that's a crummy drink that he's drinking?
You know, so I gotta. One of the things that the White Russian does, and I think for all of this though, is that it's an iconic type of cocktail. Like the White Russian is something that's sort of iconic unto itself, and for what the Big Lebowski is, for Jeff Bridges, for the dude. We're not here talking about how high he is, pretty much for every scene in the movie. We're talking about the fact that he wants a White Russian in every scene in the movie. That in itself is kind of amazing. It's almost like this mask on what Jeff Bridges is basically what his real drug of choice is.
It's really easy to abide under certain circumstances.
So apart from like dates and factual things, Dave and I usually agree, but I disagree with you on this, on the importance of the White Russian.
Tell me about your alternate facts.
We said we weren't going to bring that into the building tonight.
I avoided the pander on the Orange Russian, which is the President of the United States.
That's...
San Francisco is an easy crowd. Yes.
It's our crowd.
In all the right ways. Yeah, we were going to call it the Manchurian Candidate, but so my feeling is that to be able to distance the genre from the original noirs, where people were drinking elegant martinis, what's at the opposite end of the spectrum from a martini? A White Russian.
That's nice.
And instead
I like that.
Thank you. Chapter 13 of Proof. By the way, a real brief aside here. How many people in the audience, a show of hands, and like wave them emphatically, have Adam Rogers' book, Proof? Those of you who are not raising your hands, go out and get it. It's an amazing book.
Wonderful book.
Not just because Dave and I figure in it very prominently.
That's true.
But it's a thoroughly well-written and entertaining. I don't like to read nonfiction. It's just not that entertaining most of the time, but you're great at it. You're really sincerely wonderful.
You should do more of it.
But there's so many places where they intentionally distance themselves from the elegance of the genre. You look at the dude himself, and we can talk about the origins of the word dude, and how a dude was somebody who was essentially overdressed for the wrong situations. They were somebody who got duded up. They shortened from doodle, from Yankee Doodle Dandy, and they were overly fancy for whatever the scenario, and the dude is anything but.
But what interests me about that in the movie is that if you buy that it's a Chandler riff, Philip Marlowe is a code hero. Philip Marlowe is a rigorous. He's just as drunk as the dude is, but he's a rigorous, like, I am following the rules. I get $20 a day plus expenses, and I am going to bring order to a chaotic world. And the dude does not seem to care about bringing order to chaos.
He wants order in his own world.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back on this, to steal your words, and say that he has order in his world and insists on it in the bowling alley. That's why the bowling alley is important. He finds order in that world, and through the rest of the world, he's actually, I would say, even more of a human than Marlowe is a man, because he goes through with a very Zen approach. He's very non-confrontational. He's non-confrontational at all costs through the whole thing, and he just flows through and lets everybody do their thing. So he doesn't have to enforce the law. He is the change that he wants to see in the world.
Now we'll take some questions, I think.
Lady in red.
Yeah, Jin, let's do it. Let's do this thing. Oh, wait, sorry, there's microphones I know all of you are probably pretty drunk at this point.
I can hold it. Okay, this
We
is my
hope
first.
anyway.
By the way, this is my first time seeing this film. I think I was living overseas when it first came out.
Oh, sorry, we should have said spoilers at the top.
No, I got it. I was
not a question.
catching them. Anyway, the question is, what is this? What is the situation? What's the deal with people who are allergic to gin? For example, my father sneezes like a maniac, and someone else I know becomes this angry, verbally violent, possessed by a demon monster when he drinks gin.
Gin, though? Where does the gin come into this?
So what is it with this gin allergy?
It's justification. I really don't know that there is something that people would be allergic to. I get really, really mean when I drink whiskey, and then sometimes I don't. I think these things are there. How many people have done LSD? It's. Thank you. I was looking for a number, not a show of hands.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Were
that's
those the same
okay.
people who got my book?
Yeah,
Was it the same? Looked like the same crowd.
I think that a lot of these things, it's what you bring in, you take out with you, and alcohol can be a real mood modifier, and a lot of the cocktails that people drink gin in tend to be a little bit more spirit forward, and that can really just modify enhance whatever that mood is.
I will say most of the things that we think of as causing allergies don't make it over the top of a still. So the histamines that are allergens are molecules that are too big. They evaporate at temperatures other than what you're getting over a still. So distilled spirits tend not to have those things in them. And usually when people talk about the different effects that a different category of alcohol has on them, that tends to be, as Lance says, what psychologists and anthropologists call an expectancy. It's what we bring into the experience is what we tend to take out of it.
But if it's particular to certain type of alcohol, my dad says he's allergic to juniper berries, and then he sneezes when he drinks gin.
You should feed him some juniper berries and see what he does. But keep an EpiPen on hand.
Yeah, I've gotten into more angry fights at bars about this than I care to acknowledge. I'm really unpleasant to have drinks with because I
so many reasons.
You've just seen one of them. That's right.
Yeah. Well, it's because gin and sin rhyme, and anytime you can put a rhyming phrase together, it's
that's clearly medicine.
True.
Yeah, I think that's how science works, actually.
Yeah, sort of does.
So.
Yeah.
The next question is right up here in the back.
Hi.
So one of my favorite things about your brand is the sort of sense of play. So I remember hearing tales of making crab liqueur or Christmas tree liqueur, and I really love the popcorn brandy or popcorn bourbon you served at the Science Festival a number of years ago.
Thank you.
So can you tell me about what the sense of play means now as you've sort of evolved and been in business for more years?
It means the exact same thing as it always did. It's just that now we can afford better toys and more of them. It's the day that we stop having fun with this is the day that we should step away from the distillery. It's about constantly trying to find the edges of the envelope and pushing past them. Crab is certainly one example of pushing a little too far past the edges of the envelope.
How else do we find out where the edge is?
Exactly. But we'll make things like that for our own confusion, and we'll never force something like that on you, the wonderful public. But we constantly do that sort of thing.
Easter eggs and labels.
Yeah, and we always hide fun little things on the labels for you to find. Actually, a perfect one to bring up is one that's on the NOLA label. Dave designed the NOLA label, and inside the little oval, there's a graphic. Hi, John. There's an image of a building on Jackson Square in New Orleans.
The Armory.
The Armory. Thank you. November 21st. And on our image of the Armory, there's a phrase inscribed that you won't actually see on the Armory in New Orleans, and it says,
"The dude abides."
So, and And it's
That's
so
sorry.
small.
That's from the movie. The dude abides is from the, I don't know if you. Yeah. All right. Sorry.
It's going to make a lot of sense in an hour.
It's so small on the label that you wouldn't see it unless you're really looking around. And there are things like that hidden on labels, and we like to do that because it's fun. And it's actually funny because in this movie, there are some things like that. And if you've seen a lot of Coen Brothers films, you'll notice those things. There's a line that gets repeated by the character Walter Sobchak, and it's "Shut the fuck up, Donnie." He says it a lot, and the guy he's saying it to is played by Steve Buscemi, who yes, is he in the audience?
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
No, I made that up. That didn't happen.
No, that's
don't really.
Thanks,
Wired
2017.
Magazine, fake news.
Gullible crowd.
Wow. Anyway, and the character that he played in Fargo wouldn't stop talking on a car ride. Peter Stormare, who's one of the nihilists in this, was wanting to pull over and get some pancakes. Just always wanted some pancakes. In this movie, he gets his pancakes. And
I don't know why you're pointing at me for gets his pancakes.
And it's not code for anything.
Gross.
And then the ransom note that's in this. How many people? Probably nobody saw Barton Fink.
Barton Fink.
Wow, more people saw Barton Fink than bought Proof.
Yeah, more than bought the book. Yeah. Thanks
reading-
everybody for setting him up for that one. That was was kind of you.
Anyway, the ransom note is actually written on stationery from the Hotel Earl, which is the hotel from Barton Fink. And when the dude goes to a convenience store to buy some milk for his White Russians, watch very carefully to see the date that he puts on the check that he writes for 69 cents. It's very, very interesting. It's not like the Coen Brothers planned what was happening, but it's interesting. So yeah. Anyway, Easter eggs. That's what got me off on a tangent. Any other questions? Yeah, there's
The next question is right up here.
nosebleeds.
Hi, I had actually never heard of a White Russian until I watched the movie way back when. But for some reason, I found it very funny that it was always kind of a go-to. If the Coen Brothers, why is a White Russian funny for some reason? And two, if you were to pick, if the Coen Brothers asked you what cocktail to make and put in the movie, what cocktail would you make?
Wow, that's
a
actually
that's a good bit.
The second part of that's a great question.
The first, so you're going to take the second part. The first part is the White Russian is a funny cocktail because it's the only one where there's any it's the only cocktail where there's any argument for powdered creamer to go into it. That in itself is pure gold.
Well, and if you're just wandering around Los Angeles and you need to have a drink in your hand, having something that requires 3 ingredients like that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'd tell them to have a Negroni, only
Really?
because not because
wouldn't-
it's funny. And not because it sells more gin, but because of the fact that I love me a good Negroni.
I would have thought that you would insist that they use absinthe in a cocktail.
Oh no.
But you need no. You don't want anybody to put the basil eau de vie in it. Lance?
Yeah, no.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah,
A
that's what
crabby
you get for
Russian.
making fun of my
We'll have some-
book. Nobody bought the basil eau de vie, you guys.
I didn't make fun of your book. I made fun of the sales of your book.
Fair.
Your book's great.
Fair.
The American public just doesn't like books without more pictures.
We have time. We have time for one last question. All
We
the way
have
at
we
the
have
top.
time for as many as we wanted, as you guys want to do.
We'll
Wow.
take this question up here.
Who gave him a cocktail?
Yes, that is correct. We have as much time as we want.
That's not a question.
Anyway, you guys at the start, excellent. Your
And then it went
ability-
downhill after that. It was a
Your
good top.
ability,
and then-
your ability to say exactly how you make your liqueurs and how you love this movie and everything connected together, great. Okay.
Thank you.
So,
But-
also, by the way, I did talk with your bartenders. Tie the room together, drink.
You're welcome.
No, there's a tie the room together drink we talked about. So, the question I have is,
We didn't make it.
can you guys kind of create more of a Bay Area presence for St. George's, because I don't feel it as she said.
I did not. I don't know what's.
No. She said when people
Hung out to dry.
Here's the thing: when people say, "No, I don't. I walk 2 blocks to my house." When people say Anchor Steam, they know it's San Francisco. I want St. George's, because you guys are great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
To think Bay Area. And I'm wondering, have you got plans for that?
I just like to clarify that I did
we have
not.
plans. We have plans for an $11 billion marketing budget. So
Is it local or international?
Yeah.
sure. We got both kinds.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Does anyone on this side closer to where I'm standing? All right, here we go in the middle.
So, and real quick on that. We don't really try and push marketing down anybody's throats. We talk about who we are, what we do, and hopefully people who enjoy our stuff inform the rest of the public about it. There's so much of that awful, whorish behavior that takes place in the industry overall that we try and stay away from it.
All right. All right. One more
He's yielding the
question
floor.
from Florica.
This is not really a question, but to answer the other
Well, wait a minute. No, we're doing questions. What?
To answer the other person's question about why a White Russian is funny, I think it's funny because it's made with milk, and so
And
in
milk
the
is always funny.
dude, it's like a baby's drink, milk and alcohol, and also it's the preferred drink of anarchists, milk.
So can you bring the mic up here? I have a question.
I don't like where this is headed.
No, we just got Clockwork Orange Russian going right now.
Yeah, we did.
It seems we are out of actual questions.
That seems safe.
Are you trying to say that we made a room of delightful people speechless?
Thank you very much.
And out of actual cocktails too. So we'll be out of the actual auditorium.
Thank you.
Thank you.